All right, good morning. It is an Ohio State football game day. Did I forget that I was supposed to start the show? Look, maybe. I don't know. A lot of stuff's going on right now. I'm Tom Orr, joined by Tony Gerdeman and Kevin Noon. Ohio State and Michigan State kick off in 2 hours at high noon in Ohio Stadium. We have, I guess, Tony. Let's start with the news of the day, which is the availability report. Obviously, something that everyone wants to, kind of the big news of the moment just released. Kevin, do we have a graphic? There you go. We have an availability report for today for Ohio State and Michigan State. Tony, what jumps out to you here? A lot of these names we've seen before. What are some interesting things to you here?
Well, obviously, Seven Banks being a game time decision sounds like that might be an optimistic uh, um, assignment or a
Designate.
designation. Yeah,
Mhm.
it sounds like he's maybe going to be out, and if he's out, that's uh, you're taking a starter off the field. But I think him and Cam Brown are essentially co-starters, and Denzel Burke is fine. So it's not like they're replacing him with Ryan Watts or Legend Cavazos. I think they'll be okay there, especially if Jalen Naylor is out. The one that kind of struck me in all of this was Emeka Egbuka because
Yeah.
sure, you're losing a freshman receiver who has a handful of catches on the season, but that's also your number one kick returner, a very dangerous guy. I could look real quick to see how many kickoff returns Michigan State has allowed, but this is a guy who's leading the Big Ten in kickoff returns, kickoff return average, and any opportunity that he gets could be uh, a touchdown, and so not having him out there, 52 kickoffs, 41 touchbacks for Michigan State. So it's not like they allow a lot of kickoff returns. So maybe he would have gotten one or two.
Mhm.
But in a game between top 10 teams, that might be all you need. That might be the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, that was one I had heard a couple of these other names, but that was one I had not heard, which is interesting. Paula now Teote. I mean, he is another guy who he figures more in the run heavy games, Kevin. In terms of the Ohio State linebacker unit. So is that he's not a starter, but if he was going to play against a team, Michigan State seems like Michigan State, Michigan, and potentially Wisconsin seem like the kind of teams that he would probably play more against. What do you see them doing with the linebackers with him out today?
Yeah, that was the name that really jumped off the page to me as I was typing this thing up right before the show. And yeah, I mean, obviously, it just goes to show how little depth that they have at linebacker, and I mean, and it really highlights the importance of guys like Steel Chambers. And then what are you going to do there? Where's the depth going to come? Because everybody can rave about Steel Chambers this and Steel Chambers that. He can play one position at one time. He can't, he's not. You can't clone him and say, well, we'll just have 6 Steel Chambers. Wouldn't that be great? So what do the combinations look like? I mean, does this become a Tommy Eichenberg game? I mean, Tommy Eichenberg, I think he's very good against the run. He's certainly not somebody you want out there trying to trail tight ends. But when it comes to being a thumper out there, I mean, I think it could be a situation of where Eichenberg really answers the call.
I think this is kind of a sneaky unavailability because you are going to try to stop Kenneth Walker's running game. And it's Palai now Teote as the Sam, the third linebacker in a unit that they don't usually use a whole bunch of. You take away that third linebacker, and now who is it? Is it Craig Young? Is it, let's not forget, they don't have Dallas Gant any longer. They don't have Kayvon Pope. Their numbers are limited. Do they go with Cody Simon or Taraji Mitchell or as a Sam in this instance, or what are they going to do to if Michigan State is effective running the ball? How do they what are their three linebackers if in fact that's even what they will go to? So I think it's a sneaky important guy that Ohio State will be missing today.
Yeah, that seems like it's going to be more significant today, and if it carries forward for the Michigan game, if it carries forward for the Wisconsin game, or if they play Georgia in the playoffs, like those are all the kind of teams where you would expect to see more of him. He's not someone you were going to see a ton of against a Purdue who was just going to kind of sling it all around the field. When you've got some potentially run heavy teams coming up, that could be a significant thing depending on how long he's out. So all the other names on this list are mostly people that we are aware of being out for longer periods of time. A lot of people who are out for the season on this list. So yeah, those are kind of the big ones. I guess moving to the game itself and what things are going to look on the offensive side of the ball for Ohio State. It feels like this is a game where we've seen a lot of they have to throw to set up the run. It feels like this is, to me, Tony, they're probably going to have to throw the ball. They're probably going to be able to throw the ball as well, but you're going to have to throw the ball today to set up the run. Do you think they come out? Do you think they come out throwing, or do you think they're going to try and establish the run early?
No, it's something that we should probably chart at some point to see exactly how they come out over the course of the season, because it seems more often than not they come out throwing, and Ryan Day is okay with that. And there's portions of the throw game that is they equate it to the running game, and whether it's the short stuff or the jet sweeps and things like that. So even though they may have passed 12 straight times, like 6 of them or 5 of them may count as running plays to the coaching staff. But yeah, at this point, there's no reason to expect them to be anything other than aggressive through the air, because that's what this team is. And we've seen it work. And I think that then allows them to eventually start running for 7 yards a carry, and then really getting things established, and then really hand tying the defense, because, well, shoot, the passing game is working, and then you have to spend more time on that, and you still can't stop it. And then the running game kicks in. And that's what makes this Ohio State offense so dangerous is, sure, go ahead, try to take one thing away, but they can still, oh no, you've dropped 8. I guess here comes Travion Henderson for 270 yards like he did against Tulsa. And granted, Michigan State is better than Tulsa, but if they want to drop 8, drop 7, what does that mean? 220 yards? And, I mean, last week, Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson rushed for like 215 on 27 carries. So, I mean, I don't think that would be out of line for today as well.
And, the other piece of that is Michigan State has not had a whole lot of success against teams in the air. They're not giving up a ton of yards per play, but everyone is throwing the ball on them this year, and you're piling up. I mean, Kevin, we talked about this a little bit on last night's show. Teams that are not Ohio State, Western Kentucky, piled up a ton of passing yards against this Michigan State defense. That's the other piece that's intriguing to me. Michigan State has been getting just dunked on in the passing game all year long, and they haven't played a team with wide receiver talent or quarterback talent even close to what Ohio State has.
Here's the question I throw out there, and I haven't really looked at the numbers to test this one out. We did talk about a little bit on the Friday night show that teams are averaging 47 attempts a game against Michigan State. Are Michigan State's run defense numbers predicated upon the fact that everybody knows that they can throw on them, so they don't necessarily run, or is it that people try to run a little bit and they're like, we don't like that one, so then they go to the pass? So yeah, Ohio State is going to unleash the gates of hell in terms of its triplets at wide receiver with Olave, Wilson, and Smith and Jigba. But I also think that Ohio State probably has a different type of running game than what Michigan State is used to facing this year. So it'll be interesting to see how you try to balance that out the best that you can. But if Ohio State doesn't need to go and hit the home run shots in the passing game, Ohio State will get you with 8 to 12 yard plays over and over and over and over again. And teams that are rated much higher in the pass defense have not been able to do anything about it. What is Michigan State going to be able to do? A team that's not rated very high, especially in yards allowed. There's a reason why I picked Ohio State to break 50 in this one. And that's not because I'm expecting to see a lot of deep shots to Garrett Wilson. I think that they're just going to move the chains on them to death.
Well, Tom, this is something we've talked about in the past. This Ohio State passing offense is the most patient passing offense in the nation. Like it's not dink and dunk, but they will take 10-yard first down, comeback routes, curl routes the entire way down the field. It's just eventually something is going to break free, and then rather than do that, let's just hit Jackson Smith and Jigba for 40 yards, or oops, somebody took a screen pass for 60. Now we can't do our 10-yard passes anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with the skill talent on this Ohio State team is you don't necessarily have to throw it 50 yards downfield to gain 50 yards. Like I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba had a very long touchdown against Nebraska on a pass that was not that far down the field. I mean, they Garrett Wilson took a jet sweep handoff last week for a 51-yard touchdown. I mean, this is the skill talent here is such that you can't just keep everything in, play back, keep everything in front of you and say, well, if they throw it for 10 yards, we'll tackle them and they'll only get 10 yards. Sometimes that 10 yards, if you break one tackle, it turns into 50. And that's where Ohio State really gets you. There are a lot of people suggesting this could be a DeMario McCall game at least in the kick return. It is DeMario McCall's senior day today with Emeka Egbuka out. If you are just joining us, Emeka Egbuka is unavailable today. That's interesting that NCC 141 had a couple bold predictions that I thought were interesting and both, I think, entirely plausible. DeMario McCall returns a kick and Quinn Ewers gets one possession of garbage time. I mean, if you get into, the McCall thing is kind of self-explanatory. I don't know who would they have. They had Trevion Henderson back returning kicks at the beginning of the year. I don't think they're going to want to put him back there now. He seems like he's a big enough part of the offense that they're not going to want to do that. So Jackson Smith and Jigba has been back on punts. I don't know that have we seen him on kicks this year? Maybe.
No, the other kick returner is Xavier Johnson is the other guy back there to block sometime. How about this? The only other player with a kickoff return for Ohio State?
Steel Chambers, right?
Steel Chambers.
Wow.
Yes.
I would have gotten, it would have taken me 20 guesses to get that one. I wouldn't have, I didn't remember that.
That's why I'm the best person on the show. Tony must have looked that up.
No,
anyway.
Yes, I did. I do wonder who it will be. I don't think it'll be DeMario because he hasn't done it at all this year. Mm-hmm. Xavier Johnson has caught it twice. He's not really the burner that you're looking for, so I'm assuming they're just going to fair catch it and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's probably very likely if it's Xavier Johnson back there. But especially the second half, they could put DeMario McCall back there. I mean, if they're up by 1 million, like go give him one more shot at it.
It's senior day. I mean, you got to just sit there and get them all in there. Kate Kajerski.
Yeah.
One more fair catch for DeMario McCall.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is, I think, the Quinn Ewers thing is interesting because everyone sort of predicts that every week. And it feels like this could be the week it happens because if Ohio State's up by a bunch, Jack Miller's back. Are they going to want to put Jack Miller in or is Jack Miller still maybe, he hasn't practiced for the last couple of weeks. Quinn Ewers has got a lot more reps from all indications from Ryan Day. Quinn Ewers has taken a step forward there. Kyle McCord is at 4 games played, correct? He's played 4 games. So he's right on that threshold of redshirting. So I don't know that they necessarily want to burn a year of eligibility for nothing. So it's possible that, if CJ Stroud gets them to, 48 to 21 in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left and then they get the ball back, instead of, burning a year of eligibility for Kyle McCord just to hand the ball off 3 times, like, maybe you get Quinn Ewers a couple snaps because what the heck? I mean, Kevin, is this yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is this the day that Quinn Ewers takes his first snap for Ohio State?
No.
Oh.
I'm a party pooper. I don't know. I'm not going to end up getting all lathered up over this one. And I don't know if we're going to see a backup quarterback, and that has nothing to, again, I think Ohio State wins the game. I think Ohio State covers, but I don't know if we're going to see a situation of where you bring in Quinn Ewers. I mean, I can understand bringing in Quinn Ewers to try and play the long game with him, but are you sitting there and putting yourself in a weird position with the other guys? I mean, I understand Jack Miller just came off a suspension. Any snap that you're giving Quinn Ewers, you're not giving to the other guys. I understand trying to keep the red shirt potentially on Kyle McCord, even though I think red shirting these days is not really relevant, especially at the quarterback position. I just think we're going to see CJ the whole game. I mean, so it's not a matter of any of that. I just think that that Ryan Day has been slow to pull starting quarterbacks over the course of his head coaching career. I don't know why today would be any different.
I'm never one to push somebody out into the transfer portal, but I could understand if somebody is thinking about transferring, or if that option is going to be something they'll have to consider, which I think that is probably the case for 92% of college football quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you want to keep your red shirt? Like, wouldn't you? I don't think Kyle McCord would be upset about Quinn Ewers playing in front of him in this game because Kyle McCord, as Tom said, you're just handing the ball off or whatever. That does him nothing, and it would cost him a year of eligibility. Do I expect Kyle McCord to be in college football wherever at Ohio State or wherever for 5 years? No, but you still don't want to waste a year if you don't have to. And so I think this would be the most perfect opportunity for Quinn Ewers to be the number 2 in terms of the second guy in. He's not the backup quarterback. That's not what I'm saying at all. Kyle McCord is still very much the backup quarterback. And if CJ Stroud goes down, it's Kyle McCord.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the one time you could play Quinn Ewers and you wouldn't have to apologize to anybody. You wouldn't have to, make anybody feel better for it and say, gosh, you wouldn't have to brush anybody's hair afterwards, I guess is the best way to put it. You can just play him. And the crowd reaction will be interesting. I'm sure it'll be very, very excited and happy. But then what kind of impact does that have on the other guys? Like, I never had that. The crowd never cheered for me like that. But then also, if you bring him in, you got to let him throw the ball. I mean, we didn't pay $140 for this ticket to watch Quinn Ewers hand the ball off. We came to watch him sidearm it, throw it behind the back, and do a backflip and throw it between his legs. That's what we paid for, not this handing off crap.
I heard this whole thing about Tate Martell. I mean, Quinn Ewers and Tate Martell, two different cats. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just trying to bring my level of logic into this, which may not be any logic whatsoever. Yeah, thanks, Ketchup Boy. It's I just don't. I don't know. It would be it would be a good problem to have. The post game show would be, we'd have all sorts of things to talk about. Sue up in Toledo would be screaming her brains out if Quinn Ewers came in because she is a fangirl, as she says. So it would be a lot of fun. So you know what? I changed my mind. Go Quinn. Let's bring him in because that means that this game is out of hand. They've got what they needed, and on to rivalry week.
Quarterback controversy.
Oh, God. All right. No, I changed my mind again.
I mean, think about it. What is the greatest quarterback performance you've seen in Ohio Stadium in your lifetime? Some might say Philip Rivers in the 2003 game. Some might say J.T. Barrett against Penn State in the second
half. That fourth quarter, J.T. Barrett. I mean, yeah.
Only one person in history, Kevin, has gone 10 for 10, finished the game 10 for 10, and had a spectacular long touchdown run. I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So.
His name is Tate Martell, Kevin.
You guys are
you keep Tathan's name out of your mouth. Kevin.
You guys are pissing me off.
I did see the question here from James Gilmore. Is more likely TreVeyon Henderson goes for 200 yards or Walker is held under 100 yards? He's talking total yards from scrimmage, but I think you could even apply that to rushing. I would say more likely Walker is held under 100 than TreVeyon Henderson goes over 200. Tom.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is going to be so pass heavy in this game that they're not. I think it's very likely he gets over 100 yards at some point, and eventually, as Michigan State has to kind of back out of the box. But I don't think he's going to get to 200 because that's going to take 25 carries or something like that at the least. I don't think he's getting that many carries the week before Michigan. If they're up comfortably, they are not going to, you're probably going to see a mixture of three backs. And someone in the chat earlier was asking about Master Teague, and Master Teague not on the availability report, so he should be ready. If they can give Master Teague 10 carries and Mayan Williams 10 carries and keep TreVeyon Henderson to 10 to 15 carries today, I think they would love to do that. Keep people as fresh as possible because you got two more games you got to win after this one. So, yeah, I think there's a better chance you see Walker under 100 yards because Ohio State is, you would assume, going to, not completely sell out to stop the run, but that's going to be job one today is stopping the run. And you could see Walker with 20 carries and 92 yards, and that's not a bad day. And it probably also means that Michigan State's going to be able to throw the ball a little bit because you're going to have to really be run focused. But I could see that happening as a possibility.
Can I interrupt you guys? I have Dave Rice in the chat says Tony had fried ketchup for breakfast. And then we have where did it go? Mike Kruger, would you dip fried ketchup in ketchup?
Well, obviously he would. Yes. What kind of
I
question is
mean,
that?
first of all, fried ketchup, no. But of course, you have to dip fried ketchup in ketchup, right? Or is it, or do you not because the ketchup is already there? Like it's breaded in some fashion, it's battered, so it's pre-ketchuped. So I don't know that you need to dip it in ketchup, but I mean, you guys are the ketchup fiends, not me. So I don't. Kevin,
Is
thoughts?
I'm just trying not to boot right now. That just the whole thought of that is just repugnant. Who would have thought that we would have used the word repugnant on this show here at 10:21 in the morning? But that's just, ugh.
I think fried ketchup might be the only fried thing you can't get at the Texas State Fair. It's like you can get everything else fried, but I don't know if you can get fried ketchup. I'm imagining that as like kind of like a ketchup version of a Juicy Lucy hamburger where the cheese is like inside. This would be like like the breaded kind of with the ketchup inside, like a
Breaded ketchup.
ketchup.
Ugh.
Yeah, like a mozzarella stick, but with ketchup instead of
Oh my
cheese.
God. Wouldn't
So,
serve that to
so
prisoners. Oh God.
now that Dave Rice has put us in the ditch, I'm going to use Dave Rice again to get us out of the ditch. He says, "I fear this could be another game where the other team drops a bunch of guys and Day is too impatient and stubborn to use the running game when it's obvious he should." I mean, we've seen that from Day in the past. That was the story of the 2020 Big Ten championship game. Was everyone in the stadiums going, "Hey, the guy who's about to break the school record for rushing yards in a game, who keeps running for 30 yards every time he gets it, you should keep giving him the ball because he keeps going for 30 yards every time he gets it." I don't think he's gonna fall into that trap again. I don't think. Is he, Kevin?
I was typing a note to Steve's question. You hope not. I mean, Lord knows we've never seen a head coach against Michigan State not play the running back nearly enough in at Ohio Stadium, and you would
But
hope.
he's certainly never in late November, though, right?
I mean, but I think that they have enough sample size to see what happens when they don't run this year, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not on that offensive channel. I've tried to sit there. I have my little NASCAR scanner. I've tried to dial into it. I can't get on it to hear what they're saying, but I sure as blankety blank hope not. I hope they don't fall into that trap.
Well, and I don't think we can just blame Ryan Day on that. I mean, he and Kevin Wilson are tied at the ear, tied at the hip on these things, and they Kevin Wilson has had a 2,000-yard rusher, but of course now Ryan Day has as well with J.K. Dobbins. So it is interesting how they will just pass against what is a defense just like, we'll go ahead. I guess we would prefer you to run at this point, but if you want to keep passing, I guess we'll keep tackling the guys after an 11-yard completion or whatever. Um, at some point, when after so many games, Brian Day has said, maybe we abandoned the run too early and this and that. And if you keep saying that, if you say that more than 3 times in a season, you would think like, okay, maybe let's just stick with it. And maybe with the way Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams are playing right now, there is more reason to stick with it. Maybe you don't stick with it because Mayan Williams and Master Teague, you never knew when you were going to have one of those guys. It was just Travion Henderson a lot. So if you just have one guy and he's a freshman, I think it's understandable if you're going to throw the ball a bunch because you just don't want to wear one guy down. Now that they've got 3 again, and not knowing how much Master Teague will play, maybe he salts it away in the fourth quarter like he did, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, who knows at this point. But with more options, I think they have more incentive to stick with the run. But that doesn't mean they will.
Yeah, that's true. And I do feel like the way that Urban Meyer used the QB run in big games and kind of would fall into the trap of leaning on it too heavily. I do feel like Day will get away from the run a lot of times in games. And that's just, that's sort of a function of Urban made his money by having Tim Tebow and Omar Jacobs. Omar Jacobs, who was the Bowling Green quarterback? I'm blanking now. Josh Jacobs, Omar Jacobs.
Omar Jacobs,
Omar Jacobs.
Josh
I was right. Yeah,
Harris.
no, yeah, Josh Harris. That's the one. Yep. Having the running quarterback, that's kind of where Urban Meyer made his money, having that numerical advantage that he always talked about. Ryan Day made his money as a quarterback and throwing the ball in in the NFL as a QB coach, and at Ohio State bringing that kind of revolutionary. Hey, they're throwing the ball all the time in the offense to Ohio State. So he kind of falls into, everyone kind of has their binky, and that feels like that's kind of Ryan Day's binky, where when he's uncomfortable, he wants to snuggle up with that passing game and lean on it. Mike says, "Good morning, Tony and Kevin, and sort of Tom." Mike, if you're wondering why Mike doesn't like me, well, check the Sheep League standings on the Ask the Insider Report at BuckeyeScoop.com. Good morning, Mike.
Nobody cares, Tom. Nobody cares. One last thing before you do the "it's just me, Tim" thing here. Sue making roast chicken and chorizo hash, and I'm going to ask Sue to stop posting the food stuff that she's doing on the chat, because I ain't got none of that. So I'm just going to ask you to stop bragging and making people angry, and making me angry specifically. So Sue, just please, no more, unless you're just saying like, it's crackers and butter. It's like, that's fine, because I can do that. But when you're talking about roast chicken and chorizo hash, not so much. Okay.
Crackers and
Thank you,
ketchup
Sue.
butter.
Bold prediction for Jordan Kapler. Day is bringing back the QB power. That is quite bold. I don't think I'm expecting that. It's just me, Tim. Here's a trap. If we struggle versus Michigan State's defense, Harbaugh will spend the whole week imitating Michigan State's defense, then use Ryan Day's smarts to beat Michigan State's defense versus Michigan. I mean,
I need a flow chart for this one.
Here, I think one of the problems is, Michigan State doesn't have the pass rush that Michigan does. We're 11 weeks into the season, and I've watched every second of every Michigan game, and I still don't know what their pass defense is going to hold up against a good pass offense, because we haven't seen it. Like, it's just Penn State was kind of, but they don't have an offensive line, so Sean Clifford was just running for his life the whole game. It's bizarre. We're at the end of the season, and it's like, I feel like it's like week one. Like, well, we still have all the same questions we had in August. How will they do against a great passing offense? I don't know. We'll find out when they face one.
How are they going to do against a running game like Ohio State has, when they're spreading you out and Michigan is playing a nickel defense? Can they stop Ohio State's running game with two linebackers and their 4 or 5 defensive linemen, depending on what they play, with standing up at the line and trying to confuse stuff? Like, I think there are issues beyond just the pass defense, which there are issues there as well. But we're going to talk about that game plenty. Yeah, I think it's two different defenses, and I don't know that maybe Michigan will look for tendencies more than anything else from the Ohio State offense against what Michigan State does to them.
And we are basically at the bottom of the hour now, so we'll go back and give you the availability report again. We did that off the top of the show, but some of you guys have hopped on since then. So, couple kind of surprising names here, or significant names on here anyway. Sevyn Banks, game time decision. From what we're hearing, it sounds like the decision is going to be no, but again, he's listed as a game time decision. Emeka Egbuka, Paula Ie Naoteote. Those are kind of the 3 that are on there that are kind of new and significant. Kevin, which of those 3 do you think has potentially the biggest impact today?
I'm going to say Palie Naoteote, just because of the lack of depth at linebacker, going against a team that has a focus on running the ball. I think the combination of those 2 things, and I'll be the first one to say, it's not like EA, as his friends call him. So Mr. Naoteote from me, because I don't know him personally, but EA, he's not playing a ton. But then again, when you have as many healthy linebackers as you have fingers on one hand, you need to kind of have guys ready. So that's the one that I'm the most concerned about, because I think when it comes to the other guys, there's enough depth around them that while the loss is noticeable, it isn't as significant. But yeah, when I was typing up the list right before the start of the show, it was EA. That was the one that kind of jumped out to me.
All right,
I want to
Tony.
touch on that one.
Yeah,
Go ahead, ask.
Well, I was
Well,
going to say, Tony, embrace debate. I need you to pick one of the other two and explain why they are, in fact, the biggest loss and why Kevin is wrong. But you can first finish your thought on Naote Ote.
no, I can do both.
Okay.
Yeah, Kevin is wrong. I was actually looking just now because Michigan State's kicker Matt Coughlin was injured and has missed a couple of games. He is the guy who had 41 touchbacks on his 52 kickoffs. They've been playing a freshman in his place right now, and Mel Tucker has said, well, we're monitoring where he is in terms of Coughlin about his health, and of course they're not being overly open on whether he's going to play. But the Steven Rusnak, their kicker right now, 12 kickoffs, 3 touchbacks in the last 2 games. So that's actually a pretty significant number of kickoffs allowed. And when you are without, you give Emeka Egbuka 3 or 4 opportunities in this game, and he's going to give you some field position. Now, without him, they're probably still going to go with the fair catch and just deal with that. But I think that's maybe even a more significant loss than we were thinking. While I agree that Palia and Naote would help the run defense, I cannot agree with anything Kevin says. So I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka, Tom.
I'm going to jump in here really quick before I have to fight Tony and say, yeah, but if they get better field position, unless they house it, they're in the red zone quicker, and we don't know what happens in the red zone. So you give them a longer field, maybe more opportunity for them to, a 10-yard pass and a 45-yard run. So, touche.
Plus, if Egbuka keeps returning all of these for touchdowns, then the defense is right back on the field, and they're without Palia and Naote. And so, yeah. They're very married essentially at this point.
And I guess after Ryan Day so spitefully prevented me from winning bold predictions last week, did he look at the touchback numbers for Michigan State, recognize that I have Emeka Egbuka returning a kickoff for a touchdown in our midseason bold predictions, and say, no, take the week off, buddy. I can't tell you for a fact that that's not what happened. So I think we can obviously assume that it is. Now, Kevin talked about one of the guys who's out. Tony talked about another guy who's out. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Sevyn Banks, friend. Sevyn Banks, the biggest story, the biggest injury, potential availability issue today. I don't know that that's necessarily true, especially with Jalen Naylor out. But it's a significant injury for Ohio State, where they've got, Cam Brown has been dinged up on and off this year. He's, if you're missing 2 of those guys, then it's a problem. Sevyn Banks has not had a fantastic season. He's been okay, but he has not had the season that I think he was set up with some unrealistic expectations by some NFL draft folks who had him as, potentially a first round draft pick, or, someone. We were talking to someone yesterday who mentioned that there was someone who had him as potentially the number 1 overall pick in the nation, which, I mean, that seemed a little excessive. But he's been okay this year. He's been fine. Michigan State is probably not going to be throwing the ball, spreading out, and throwing it as much as Purdue was last week. But you still want to have some depth there. So yeah, that's another potentially significant one for Ohio State. Let's touch real quickly on some of the other games today before we dive back into kind of the other half of the Ohio State.
Let's comment on Timothy's statement first, and then do that, because we always love the love.
That seems so obvious to me. Scoop is the best show in town, pre and post game. I mean, I don't know who else is there. You want me to put on a mascot head? I mean, I can. It's fine, but I mean, I don't know who else you'd be watching.
Yes, put on a mascot head, Tom, right now.
Please. The fighting Granvilles or whatever you have handy,
They're the Blue Aces, Kevin, and they won 57-49 last night to win the district title, heading to this Final Four. Go Blue Aces.
Sounds like they don't have a defense.
The funny thing is, they played some very low-scoring games before this. They were playing a team that was, I guess, like basically a run-and-shoot team or something from Brown County, which is kind of the middle of nowhere east of Cincinnati. And turned into quite a shootout last night. Granville's running back had 6 touchdowns rushing in a game, which, I don't know, seems good. I don't know a lot about football. Ed Rogers says Pryor should be the 3rd string running back. I think at this point, Evan Pryor is like, they like Evan Pryor. They think Evan Pryor has a bright future. Evan Pryor is just not big enough right now for blitz pickup and some of the other stuff. Like if you get him the ball in space, he can do something. But I think other teams are going to see, if Evan Pryor's in the game, they're going to see him and they're going to recognize he's going out for a pass. Like they're not going to have a back end for blitz pickup because he's just not quite big enough yet. He's still like 185 pounds or something like that. He's essentially like freshman year DeMario McCall. Just he's a little dude, exciting with the ball in his hands, but he needs probably another year with Coach Mick before he's ready to be more an every down player. Mike says, I like you very much, Tom. I also sort of loathe you. It's complicated. I totally get it. I work with Tony. I totally get what you're saying. I get it. So let's
real quick on Master Teague and Evan Pryor. Master Teague has 28 career carries against Michigan State. He's going to be that third running back, I think. The experience is there, and you need that experience in November right now.
Don't put the ball on the ground. We don't know what Pryor's ball security is yet. It was such a small sample size. You ride veteran hands. If you trust the veteran hand, you ride that veteran hand in that type of situation.
All right, so there are some other big games going on today before we get to the Ohio State defensive side of the ball, because you guys probably don't want to hear about the Ohio State defense. So we're going to talk about some of the other big games going on across the nation today. I saw something last night. There's some big games. There's some big games with major national championship implications. But I saw something on Twitter last night from the University of Central Florida. Kevin, the Civil Conflict Trophy is back. Do you love the Civil Conflict Trophy as much as I do? College football's greatest rivalry trophy.
I had to look up what the hell it was because I'm serious. I'm about ready to give back about 8 or 9 states, and Connecticut's one of them. I don't really care. I read it and then I still wasn't really sure what was going on, so I had to reread it. And no, I don't care whatsoever. I mean, this week. I do appreciate that it's here during the week that is known as Chicken Bleep Week, because the SEC takes the schedule and then just plays all the directional schools that it can find. But I like my rivalries to be recognized by both sides. Don't misplace the damn trophy. And what else can I do to just kind of ruin the whole story? I don't know. I just don't care about UCF or UConn.
Okay, so here's the story of the Civil Conflict Trophy. Bob Diaco, when he was the head coach, handsome Bob Diaco, who cannot coach defense worth a lick, and UConn made him a head coach about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago. When he was the head coach of UConn, wanted to create a rivalry trophy and just kind of made one up. And the reason he picked, why are UConn and UCF with their long and storied history as rivals? ? Why was UCF the school that he created a rivalry with? Well, because they had beaten UCF in the previous year, so therefore he could make it and then put it in his own trophy case. That's why. And why is it called Civil Conflict? Because the state abbreviation for Connecticut is CT, and conflict ends in CT, and Florida is FL, and guess what conflict also has in it? FL. That's why. Civil Conflict. You can look it up. It is the greatest rivalry trophy in all of sports. And after UCF won it the last time, they left it on the field because they were like, well, we don't care about this. You just made it up. And they just left it on the bench at the stadium. But now it is back. UCF tweeted out a video. So, Kevin, you can't say that both schools don't care about it.
But they didn't at one point. I mean,
but
this isn't broken bits of chair or whatever. I mean, I give me that instead. I mean, come on. Give me that awful Heartland trophy. I'm going to sit there and try and put a graphic together with that. The rejected one. I mean, it was horrible.
I do like the fact that Scott Frost, when he was at UCF, was like, please do not bring that trophy. We do not recognize this rivalry. Do not bring that into the stadium. We don't want it.
So, yes. So that's obviously game number 1. I'm shocked that game day is not there. Maybe they didn't know that the trophy was going to be there. So, other games of some note today. Alabama, Arkansas. I have kind of conflicting feelings on this because Arkansas gave Alabama a pretty good run last year, but I think as the game has gotten closer, I have started talking myself more into Alabama is maybe going to control Arkansas's offense and be able to move the ball a little bit on Arkansas's defense. That this could be another thing where it's like the Arkansas-Georgia game where we sort of talk ourselves into Arkansas might be able to do this. And then Alabama's defense is better than you think and can kind of keep Arkansas at least at arm's length? I mean, Tony, what are you thinking?
I'm just looking back because I also remember some time where Arkansas gave Alabama some trouble, and I
Mm-hmm.
look at last year, and the score last year was 52-3, and I was like, oh, maybe it's 2019, and the score in 2019 was 48-7, and then I was like, oh well, maybe it was 2018, and then maybe that's what it was because then it was 65-31, and well, maybe then it was 2017, and no, it was 41-9. So I don't know. Maybe this is the Mandela effect. Maybe this is the Bielema effect, or something to that effect. But I, it seems like Arkansas can plod along for a half before the lack of talent that they have gets overwhelmed by the talent that other teams have. But you know, Alabama hasn't been able to run the ball that well. So if they are one dimensional, does that give Arkansas an advantage? We keep seeing every week Jamison Williams breaking free for a long gain, and it's like, gosh, if they would just keep him from having a 60-yarder or a 70-yarder, what would happen? And but I feel like this is could be a close game throughout, but then Alabama just eventually wins by 21, something like that.
Super chat from Philip Pulio. It's a great
Whoops, I'm
wrong
trying to I'm building. I'm sorry.
it's a great. Philip Pulio says it's a great day to be a Buckeye. Let's see how Bama holds up, and let's go Utah. Keep up the good work, guys. While Kevin is building, Tony, Utah, they are favored. They're number 23, I think, in the college football playoff rankings. They're favored over Oregon, who is number 3 in the college football playoff rankings. I mean, you get 3 points for home field, sure. So, but I mean, does that say more about Oregon or does that say more about Utah? That Utah is favored, and how do you see that one shaken out tonight?
I think it says more about Oregon, and this is the number 3 team in the nation. They should. I understand it's a road game, but at this point, you should be favored over anybody not in like the top 15 or something. So this is one of those things where I think voters are seeing what Oregon looks like, and Vegas is seeing what Oregon looks like. The committee is looking at, well, they beat Ohio State, and beating Ohio State has no bearing on what they're going to do against Utah. And if they try to, you know, try to convince at coin toss, hey guys, I know Utah, you're here, you want to win this game, but we beat Ohio State. Are you sure you still want to play? Utah's going to be like, yeah, we're still going to play. And you look at what Utah has done in the past. Like they've played 2 teams that are currently ranked. They lost at BYU, the 26-17. They lost at San Diego State, 33-31. And they have not played anybody, any ranked opponents in the Pac-12. So this will be their first one, most significant one. I guess we'll certainly learn more about them. I don't know if we'll learn anything about Oregon because I think we know who they are. So this is an opportunity for Oregon to say, we are also somebody, even though we now have 3 losses. But at least we ruined Oregon's season.
Yeah, and that's that's I think I think this is a real possibility that they lose tonight, Oregon. It seems like they are to me a lot like Oklahoma was coming before last week, where it was just like, all right, the rent is going to come due at some point.
I give up. I can't build on the fly. I don't know how to use preview mode.
There's so many people are saying nice things about the show in the chat, and we have the worst producer, I tell you. There are last week Oklahoma, it was like, man, that they are just living paycheck to paycheck every week, like just barely scraping by, and it's like, man, that balloon payment's going to come due on their mortgage, and it's like, oh boy, like once that adjustable rate drops, like, oh boy, they're going to be in trouble. And that bill came due last week against Baylor. You kind of feel that way. It's a little bit that way with Cincinnati this week. It's a little bit that way with Oregon this week. Like they've been begging to lose a game, just begging to lose a game. You're playing better opponents now. Maybe this is, maybe they're the team that kind of, plays up or down to the level of the competition and will come out and have a fantastic game. We haven't seen it for quite a while. There was an interesting question in the chat from Chuck Kemet. Which players would lose a redshirt if they play another game? I pulled that up from Ohio State. Here are the guys who have played exactly 4 games this year and would therefore, the next time they step on a field, lose their redshirt. Kyle McCord, Jack Miller. Jaden Ballard has 1 more game he could play before he would lose one. Jordan Hancock has 1 more game he could play before he would lose one. I was going to say Dallas Gant, but no, he's not going to play anymore. Evan Pryor is to his 4th game, so he can't play anymore, or he'll burn a red shirt. I would expect you're not going to see Evan Pryor as a result of that. Marcus Crowley, he's out for the year, obviously. Reed Carrico, linebacker, you're probably not going to see him again. Just sort of scrolling down the list. Mike Hall has 1 more game he can play in. Toby Wilson, the backup lineman, backup center. He has played in 4 games, so he would burn it in a year of eligibility. Jacob James, the backup offensive lineman, has played in 4 games so far this year. Jaden McKenzie, who is injured, he's played in 3. Jacoby Cowan, defensive end, he's played in 4.
These are all redshirted guys already, though.
Yeah, a lot of those guys have redshirted already. So now I think, Jacob James, for example, was a true freshman in 2020. So that, he may be able to take the COVID year and also have this be a redshirt year and be a 3rd-year freshman next year. What a time to be alive. Like that, if he really rushed through his degree, he could theoretically graduate with freshman eligibility. Like that is just dynamite. What a time to be alive. Texas Buckeye Kevin 91. Given that Maryland is 55th in pass play percentage and 48th in completion percentage, do you think they test Michigan's pass defense at all? I have asked Tony like 3 questions in a row because Kevin's been busy, but this is really a Tony question because Tony watches more Michigan than anyone else. So
yeah, that's fine. I'm not offended.
Tony, your thoughts?
I think they can. It all comes down to pass blocking, David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson, and if they can do that, I think the Michigan corners are vulnerable. We know DJ Turner has been playing better and better. Michigan cornerback, he's looking pretty good. But I think these guys are looking very good because of the pass rush. And we, Ryan Day talked about if the pass rush isn't getting there, that you need to bring the coverage up. Like they don't need to have that tight coverage because the pass rush gets there. And so who knows what happens if the ball doesn't come out in 2 seconds. Who knows what happens to Michigan if Talia Tagovailoa has time? Like who's stopping Raheem Jarrett and all. They've got some other talented guys, and they lost Dante Demas after like 5 games, but they do have other talented receivers, and so I feel like Maryland just needs to make the plays that are available to them. They will get some throws off. They will need to execute that. Don't overthrow the open 40-yard 9 route down the sideline. If you connect on those, it can be a game, but you have to be precise and the opportunities to make plays that you actually get because you're not going to get a lot of them. Don't fumble the ball. Talia Tagovailoa, I believe, fumbles it a lot. Can throw some interceptions. Just, I guess, have the 6th sense as a quarterback working when have that pocket awareness on high alert. Crank it to 11. You're going to need it. And if he doesn't fumble, I like their chances even more. I don't like their chances to win. But if they can protect him, I think it can be an interesting 14-point game or something like that. I don't know that Maryland's going to be able to do much to stop Michigan's offense, but what does that mean for Michigan? 31 points?
Yeah, I mean, I do have concerns. I mean, you mentioned the ball security issues with Tagovailoa. I mean, over/under on strip sacks in that game for Michigan today. Not that they recover. Over/under 1.5. Your thoughts?
I'm going. That's
I was going to say 1.5 is my over/under. I don't know.
And I'm going over.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin. This is either Gee-fish or G-fish. I'm going with Gee for the Ohio State former president pronunciation. Bold prediction: Julian Fleming will have a breakout game today in place of Egbuka, 100-yard plus. Now, I don't know if that's 100 yards receiving, 100 yards kick return. I mean, Tony, before we give this to Kevin, how many points would you give this on our bold prediction show? I mean, this feels like about a 6-pointer.
I was going to say 5, but I can go 6, and we will allow all-purpose yards. So
okay,
although
Kevin, Julian Fleming, is this the Julian Fleming game?
I've already been labeled a hater and a negative Nancy or whatever, so I feel like
Negative
if I,
Nancy.
oh yeah, I feel like if I don't take this, it's just gonna perpetuate. But I don't know if this is the game where you sit there and have it as a laboratory. I don't know. I think you go and put a known quantity in terms of your return game for filling in for Egbuka, and are you going to be taking the law firm of Smith and Jigba, Wilson, and Olave? Are you going to be taking them off of the field to be putting another guy in there? I don't know. I'm not gonna. I don't see it.
I like NCC 141's response to this a little bit. No on Fleming there trying to get Olave up to 1,000 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much effort they're going to put into that. I know they wouldn't mind it at all to have 3 1,000-yard receivers this year.
Think of the
That would
edit
go
you could have with that.
exactly. And so we know Olave's a little over 400 yards away from, or no, he's 400 yards from setting the all-time school record. He needs he needs a big day. He doesn't need a big day.
Something away. I thought, yeah.
Right. So I like the idea of getting them all three to that. I think that's something that, while if it doesn't happen, they won't be terribly upset. But if there's an opportunity to make that happen and it doesn't hurt anybody, go do it. But at this point, they can't put any thought into that with Michigan State, Michigan, perhaps Wisconsin, then Notre Dame, and then Cincinnati. Like, you can't be worried about 1,000-yard receiver when you get that lineup coming in the postseason. But I don't think they would mind it if it happens.
We had a question last night on the Friday night show about Chris Olave and his career stats and where he ranks in terms of how much more he has to do to pass to get it into become Ohio State's career leader in receptions and yardage and touchdowns. He is one, and last night we realized after going through that the record book I was going through off of the official Ohio State website history ended in 2017. So it's like what are the, teaching history out of a textbook that ends sometime around the fall of the Berlin Wall. So some things have changed there. So here's a quick update. He is one behind the career touchdowns record, which is 34. He has 33 right now. So he is, potentially, he could break that record, tie that record, or break that record today. KJ Hill is the all-time leader in receptions in a career. He has 201. So Olave needs 40 to tie KJ Hill. It's doable, but even if they play the full 5 remaining games, he'd need to average 8. So that's probably, unless you have a 14, 15-yard game, or 15 reception game like Jackson Smith and Jigba did a couple weeks ago, that's not super, super likely to me. And I'm just pulling up the receiving yards career record in just a second. It is, there we go. Michael Jenkins, 2,898. So as we established last night, Tony can't do the math on this one. 2,898. He has 2,474. So he has 425 yards to go to break that record. To me, Tony, is it the receptions, 40 receptions, probably not going to happen. 425 yards in the next 5 games, that's doable. And 2 touchdowns is almost certainly going to get done.
Yeah, I think that's the right order. I do expect him to break that 2898. I would be a little surprised if he didn't. If we're talking, and at this point, I think I am talking about 5 games remaining. And so 80 yards a game for him wouldn't, 84, something like that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, and certainly out of the realm of probability. And so I would expect him to do that. And this is, as we said yesterday, only playing 7. I think he played 7 games last year because he missed one. He was held out for one. And we know he didn't really come on as a freshman until the second half. So this would be, as I said, he'd already have the record this year. But then, as you mentioned, would he even come back if he already, if he had played a full year last year, would he come back? So, yeah, I think he's going to handle 2 of those records. I think the 40 catches that the KJ Hill is probably out of reach. I would say Jackson Smith and Jigba would have a shot, but he's going to be gone. Garrett Wilson is probably not going to get there either. And it's going to be hard to top somebody who played 4 years because a lot of these guys are only going to be playing 3 years for a while. I just want to mention the record book reminded me, Tom and Kevin, growing up in the 80s and even in the 90s, we didn't have the internet. We had encyclopedias. We had the World Book Encyclopedia in my house from 1961. So the last president in my encyclopedia was John F. Kennedy. Don't know how that finished up. Just know that he had been elected, and I'm sure everything went smoothly there with that. And so a lot of my book reports, or not book reports, but history reports, would be like, I don't know about Vietnam, so I'm gonna have to. But anything pre like Korean War, I can do that. But again, my hands are tied. 1961 and earlier, I'm good. Anything after that, I don't know that it's actually happened yet.
These damn kids don't know the struggle of encyclopedias. They haven't had to learn the Dewey Decimal System of going to the school library and dealing with any of that stuff. I mean,
they still have the Dewey Decimal System.
Why
do they have the Dewey Decimal System? They don't have card catalogs anymore. You just look it up on a computer, but you still have to know the Dewey Decimal System.
I don't have kids, so why? I mean, do you have to put that in your URL? I mean, in Google?
You have to take the book off the shelves. They still have actual physical books in libraries.
Why?
Kevin's old man yells at cloud bit is my favorite. Ed Rogers, is Day going to get a raise after Tucker broke the bank? After Mel Tucker, I mean, it's not signed yet, but 10 years, $95 million. I mean, Kevin, to me, this looks like everyone in the country. If Mel Tucker is making $95 million, everyone in the country is going to start getting raises, because it's like, well, got it. Ryan Day, had the head coach at Ohio State, has to make more than the head coach at Michigan State. And then, is Michigan, will this end up, I think the funniest possible outcome here is that Michigan takes this 1 year where they potentially lose to Michigan State and Ohio State and go, well, if Michigan State, we can't let Michigan State pay their coach more than they pay us, and give Jim Harbaugh some massive new contract off this.
After cutting his salary.
After cutting his salary, does this lead to some like 8-year, $80 million deal for Jim Harbaugh?
Please. I mean, pretty please. I don't know. I mean, I'll start on the Ohio State side of things. Yeah, there's going to have to be something that happens there. I know that there are coaches nationally that have deals of where it's in their contract that they have to be a top 5 coach in terms of what the pay is. And it's just kind of almost automatic that it kicks in the renegotiations and so on and so forth. And you know what? I think what's really important, and what's not being talked about as much at Michigan State too, is I think they're throwing more money in the assistant coaching pool, and I think that's very important. Ryan Day could be making more money at Ohio State. Ryan Day saw the importance of the assistant coaches and being able to pay these guys $1 million, 1.3, whatever. We're not that far removed from a conversation with Gene Smith saying, I don't think we're going to get in the $1 million assistant club anytime soon. And within a year, they were in it. So, yeah, I think that there are a lot of agents that are on, that are talking to their clients, and there's going to be, this is great for the coaches there, but I think it's not going to be great for some programs once they get to the point of having to pay all this out, and then they're not upgrading their facilities and things of that nature. And where's all the money going to come from? It's only going to create a greater divide between the haves and have-nots in college football, and covering a team that certainly is a have. It's probably not as much of a thought for us, but I think that it's an arms race that's going to create an even bigger chasm.
The number is so high. I don't know that schools will I don't know that Ohio State would be like, yeah, okay, we're gonna top that, because Ryan Day's making what, 6 right now. I think Urban got up to 7 at one point. We know Jim Harbaugh was 8 before restructuring, but like 9.5, it's just one of those things where it's just so high that it's like, well, it's, you just allow the outlier. Like, this isn't the market, this is above the market. So it's like, does it even apply? Like, the market still applies, and that is just like, well, you overpaid. And when I say you, it's the donors, and they want to keep them around. So go ahead, not throw your money away, but use your money how you want. Now, if you got a couple of donors at Ohio State who are like, what the heck am I doing rooting for a school where my coach is making $3.5 million less than Michigan State's coach? This makes me look like a terrible millionaire. This makes me look lesser in the eyes of my millionaire friends. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give Ohio State $3.5 million, $3.501 million a year for them to attach to Ryan Day's contract so that he is paid higher than Mel Tucker. That way, I won't be rooting for a team that isn't paying their coach more than Michigan State's, because I cannot live with that in my social circles.
Yeah, you don't want to be the broke boy who's not paying their coach. Come on, that's not. Speaking of not wanting to be the broke boy, Jordan Kapler. This is the time when we find out if Mark is watching right now or not. Tony, Tom, and Kevin should all get a raise similar to that of Mel Tucker. I mean, anyone disagree with that? I think it's a fair point. Well reasoned.
Well, I do want to throw some water on that fire because I'll tell you what I did this morning for the first time ever. So I was putting my contacts in. First time in my life, this happened to me. I'm putting my contacts in, and I'm putting some old ones in. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with the new ones. So I put a new left one in. Perfect. I put a new right one in. I'm like, this is blurry. Why is this so blurry? And I'm messing around with my eye, and I realized I'd put my new contact in over my old one, and it turns out your vision doesn't get twice as good from having two contacts.
2010, ladies, here we go.
No X-ray vision either. It's just very blurry. And then when you have two contacts on your eyeball, it's like having, I don't know, two suction cups on your eyes, and you're like, no, we're not going anywhere. And so you really have to go in there and like just peel off the contact lens, because you can't just squeeze it off like a normal one. And so I eventually did get the new one off and put that aside, then got the old one off, and here we are, two contacts, brand new, and never have done that before. So I don't know that maybe you guys earn a raise. I am an idiot.
Agreed. Kevin, mark that time. We're going to use that as a drop on the show in the future.
I was going to say 102, an hour 2 into the show about just we'll right. Mark it and just that might be my ringtone.
All right, couple more things before we do wrap up. Number one, we are back at the top of the hour. Let's hit the availability report one more time, just for the people who may have just joined us. Three significant names on here. We've talked about this a few times already, and I think a lot of people have been here the whole time, so I don't want to belabor the point, but Sevyn Banks, game time decision, Emeka Egbuka, Paula Ie Naote. We've talked about all three of them could play into the game a little bit. Naote, because Michigan State's going to want to run the ball, and this is more of a game for him than than some of the, like the Purdue game. He was not really going to figure into the game plan as much against a pass heavy team, potential run heavy team. That could be a bigger deal. Sevyn Banks, as long as they still have Cam Brown and Denzel Burke healthy, they can probably get along without him today if they need to, but that's at least a concern. A depth hit there, and Emeka Egbuka, you hate to lose him in the kick return game because he just has constantly seemed like he's been on the verge of breaking a long one. So that's another potential concern. As far as the Ohio State defense, we haven't talked about the Ohio State defense yet because we like to give people things to feel good about. So we haven't talked about the Ohio State defense yet. Let's talk about the Ohio State defense now. It was probably not as bad. After talking to Ross Fulton on the Morning Scoop a couple times this week, it probably was not quite as bad as it seemed last week, giving up 390 yards to Purdue. It wasn't great. But Purdue also is a team that can throw the ball and has, wide receiver talent in a way that Michigan State, Michigan, Wisconsin don't. So, what you saw last week was not encouraging. It was, maybe a little bit of a regression for the Ohio State defense. But if you're playing teams that don't have the opportunity to do that, then, how much does that really matter? So, Tony, is this more of a, what is a bigger concern for Ohio State today? Stopping Kenneth Walker or stopping the pass game?
Stopping Kenneth Walker, but even if you do stop Kenneth Walker, the passing game is still an issue. Penn State threw for 361 yards against Ohio State. Purdue threw for 386. We saw Tulsa throw for 428. So, they want to make Michigan State one-dimensional, but we've seen this defense struggle against one-dimensional offenses. So there's going to be like you've accomplished your mission of stopping Kenneth Walker. Oh, but also now you have to stop the passing game, which has been something that has caused great consternation among Buckeye fans and coaches. And at this point, Ryan Day has said it is what it is. Like nobody's coming in from the transfer portal in November. Nobody else is stepping up. I mean, we see Marcus Hooker as another safety who's out there. There's 4 safeties listed on that availability report. And so you are what you are at this point defensively. You need that pass rush to effectively make that pass defense stronger, make the pass coverage stronger. But there are ways to, get closer, get tighter on the coverage, as Day has said. But if they can stop Kenneth Walker, because if they can't stop Kenneth Walker, then don't expect them to stop the passing game as well. So it starts with Kenneth Walker. Do that, and then hope for the best, because then at least you know what's coming. If you can't stop Kenneth Walker, then we could have like a 52-49 type of game here.
Yeah, and as Kevin posted there, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. You get notified when we do our post-game show as well. Give us a like as well. Hit that thumbs up on this video. That will help other folks find this show. This is something that I should remember to do at the beginning of the show, and somehow we get an hour in.
We haven't even done our predictions either. I mean, we're just riffing already.
So, Kevin, I saw a question in the chat earlier about Michigan State's injury. So we did the Ohio State availability report already. You talked a little bit last night about some things that you were hearing from some sources on the Michigan State side of things, in terms of guys who may be dinged up, or may be at least not 100% today. What were you hearing?
Yeah, I heard not to expect to see Jalen Naylor again. I won't know until I know. But he'd been dealing with a hand issue. I'd heard that the defensive tackle Burrow, people were surprised that he didn't go. It's unknown if he's going to be good to go. The linebacker, the Tennessee transfer, Quavaris Crouch, I believe is his name. He would be a big loss there. Didn't really get a chance to talk to my guy about the kicker. I know a lot of people, Tony talked about the kicker. Certainly changes the aspect of some things, especially when special teams have meant something in this series before. But I think that a loss of Jalen Naylor would be huge, because it would turn a 2-headed monster at receiver into a 1-headed monster. I saw what you did there too, Tom. A 2-headed monster into a 1-headed monster. I don't think that Trey Mosley is the same guy as Jalen Naylor. Mosley being their number 3 receiver. Jaden Reed is still a dude. I mean, you're still going to have to account for him. I would think there would be some pretty good battles between he and Denzel Burke, but if Naylor's off the field, that's a pretty big loss.
And there were reports about Kenneth Walker maybe
and the
not
ankle,
100%.
Yes. Yeah, and there's certainly been those rumors. We have a guy who's a Michigan State fan I'm just bringing his name up here, Mikey Gematria, who's kind of mentioned some things about Walker as well. We'll see. I mean, expect him to go, but will he be able to really plant that foot? Will he be able to cut the way that he does? I mean, he's such a patient runner. He can really stick his foot in the ground. If he can't stick his foot in the ground, how effective will he be?
So let's before we wrap up, let's hit our score predictions for the game. I had Ohio State winning 45-24. I think this is a game where Michigan State's going to score some, but I think Ohio State's going to be able to control Walker. And control Walker just means 25 carries, 120 yards. I mean, it's 5 yards a carry, give or take, maybe something like that. As long as he's not going off, as long as he's not running 25 times for 7.5 yards a carry, you can probably live with that, because I think they're going to be able to score and going to be able to move the ball pretty consistently through the air against Michigan State, which then probably opens up the running game a little bit. If they can be multidimensional on offense, I think they're going to keep that. They're going to keep the ball moving. You get 7s in the red zone instead of 3s. It feels like maybe they've solved those issues now. They've sort of worked some stuff out there. It feels like they should be able to get into the 40s at least against Michigan State. And Michigan State, I think, just isn't – they're going to be able to move the ball, but not as consistently as Ohio State. I had it 45-24. Tony, what was your pick?
I went 52-28. I really am expecting a big passing day for Ohio State, and then with the passing will come some complementary running and perhaps a big play or two there. But I just don't see Michigan State stopping the Ohio State passing game. I think the pass blocking will be good enough. Michigan State, I think, averaging around 2 sacks per game, and Ohio State should be fine limiting that. And there's just it's a pick your poison type of thing with the defense against Ohio State's offense with against the passing game, and then something else, some other poison breaks free, and really you just have to kind of hold on and hope Ohio State makes some mistakes and try to get to the quarterback, and I think they'll hold up there. And then defensively for the Buckeyes, this is perhaps the most complete offense they've faced, so I do expect some points. Would it shock me if Ohio State does a really good job against this offense? Maybe. I just think it's a complete balanced. I don't want to say complete. It's a balanced offense. They can throw the ball when they need to. Requires Peyton Thorne to be on his game. Sometimes he is. Sometimes he isn't. If he isn't and the moment is too big for him, then this could get out of hand really quickly. And we've seen how things went all to heck last week for Purdue. The same thing could happen in this one.
I have 52-31. I wrote my prediction before I'd really started to gather some stuff in terms of the injury, so I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan State's number was a little lower, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was 31. Much respect to them having a balanced offense. Peyton Thorne throwing the ball. Jaden Reed is a tremendous receiver. Not sure what they're going to get from the rest of the receiving corps if Jalen Naylor's not there. As Tom said, do you take 25 carries for Kenneth Walker, $125 and a score? I think you sign up for that all day long just based on who he is. Nation's leading rusher. What is it, 143.7 a game, something like that. If you can keep him just even at his average, even if you sit there, say 25 carries for $143 and a score, I think you take it at that point. On the other side of the ball, I really like Ohio State to throw the ball around. I'm not expecting to see them needing to do a lot of 9 routes of things where they're going for the 40-yard reception on the 40-yard throw, go 10, run at 30. I think Ohio State's going to be able to do that. I think Ohio State's going to surprise a lot of people being able to run against this defense. I'm not saying that we're going to see a 300 type of game, but I think Ohio State breaks 200 yards rushing easily with its trio of running backs. I'm going to even throw it out there. I'm expecting Ohio State to exercise some demons in special teams, and even without Emeka Egbuka, I'm expecting some sort of special teams play in Ohio State's favor.
Intriguing. Before we go, I do want to hit one from one of my favorite usernames that we see somewhat frequently, Anthony Dodge, the model train outsider, who I love, like he's the bad boy of model railroading. I love that username. Doesn't Michigan State have to put their list out by now, their availability list? Because Ohio State puts their list out a couple hours before the game. This is not the NFL. There is not a Big Ten rule that you have to put out an availability report. That's just how Ryan Day chooses to do it, because his philosophy is he doesn't want to talk about injuries at all during the week. So he gets asked about guys during the week and he'll not answer and say, oh, we'll put the list out when we put the list out. He chooses to put the list out a couple before, and that is how he addresses it. So he's, he can say, we're addressing it, and so we're going to let you know what people's status is, but we're not going to say out parentheses concussion or out parentheses knee or out whatever. You do this. There is not an NFL style injury report rule that the Big Ten has. That's been discussed. It's a possibility that could happen in the future. But Michigan State, as far as I'm aware, does not put out an equivalent version of that. So that's go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before we go, touch on I think it was NCC 141 asking about final question. Carnell Tate pull the trigger this weekend. He's on an official visit. It sure seems like he's on the verge. I know he was supposed to commit in like August or September, and he pushed it back to maybe December once he gets all of his visits in.
It was originally like October 8th, and then he pushed it back. Yeah.
I saw also 24/7 bumped him up to their number 1 receiver in the nation this week. I think it's just a matter of time for that. Also, Ohio State hosting Devin Brown, quarterback 2022 quarterback, on an official visit this weekend. USC commit, the number 5 pocket passer in the nation. Sure looks like there's a lot going on there, so something else to keep in mind. Kevin, Carnell Tate going to be a Buckeye this week?
I don't know. I mean, I have him on my short list of, next guy to pop, but I think he holds true with the December date. I think we're going to have to wait a couple more weeks on that one. And as for Devin Brown, I understand that official visits are paid for, but you just don't come out and you put one together last second just to come out and have punch and pie. It seems like Ohio State is doing some good work there. And then, everybody wants to talk about Drew Allar, but he could be the guy. He could end up being the guy in the class.
Yeah, I was told he was flying straight from the state playoff game last night to come to this game. So it's rare to get the West Coast guys out here for noon kickoffs because of the whole difficulty and who wants to take that light flight. So even doing that gives you an idea of the interest, like the red eye type flights.
And here, just to run through the list of visitors that Alex Gleitman of Buckeye Scoop has compiled, find Alex on Twitter. Tony, look up Alex's username handle on Twitter so we can plug his Twitter, because he is a fantastic follow and a really great recruiting reporter. 2022 quarterback Devin Brown, who we just talked about, CJ Hicks, who is basically the free space on the who's visiting this week bingo card, kicker Jaden Fielding, which is interesting that you've got a kicker visiting this weekend. 2023, you've got Carnell Tate, who we talked about, Ty Lockwood, the tight end who's already committed, tight end / offensive tackle Tanner LeMaster. He was someone who camped at Ohio State over the summer. I remember seeing him, and I think Ohio State wants him to be a lineman, and he wants to be a tight end. So he's an in-state kid. So that's one to keep an eye on. Offensive lineman Charles Jagasaw, offensive lineman Peyton Kirkland. He's another one who is kind of being talked about as like keep an eye on him. He could be a commitment person. Defensive end AJ Hoffler, Sonny Styles, who just committed to Ohio State. He will be there this weekend. In the 2024 is quarterback Carter Noyes, running back Stacey Gage, wide receiver William McKinley IV. Man, that's I can't wait. I cannot wait for if William McKinley IV is playing for Ohio State. I cannot wait to make so many history jokes. It's going to be amazing. Defensive end Nigel Smith, linebacker Sammy Brown, and cornerback Hudori Hines. Those are the visitors for this weekend. So, anyone else have anyone? There you go. At Alex Gleitman. Well, that was easier than I thought. So yeah, give Alex a follow on Twitter. Fantastic recruiting reporter, extremely hardworking dude. Does some great stuff for us and puts those visitors list together, which it's always great information, and it is a pain in the butt to put that stuff together because that's a lot of people you got to reach out to. So
I will mention Ohio State has a 2023 basketball commit named George Washington III.
Yes, yes, but that's a little basic. That's a little like anyone can make jokes about George Washington, but
I cannot tell a lie.
Yeah,
and keep an eye on 2025 quarterback Grover Cleveland VII. He was also a 2023 quarterback, and then had to skip a class.
You beat me to the joke. There you go. Well done. I think that's probably about what we need to go out on. I don't think we're going to beat Tony's non-consecutive the commit that spanks Tony on non-consecutive occasions. So I think we're going to have to wrap it up on that one. So
please.
Thank you guys all for joining us. Make sure you hit that bell, subscribe to our channel, and that way you get notified when we pop up after the game. We should be up pretty much right at the end of the game. We'll tweet out the link. We'll have it on our Ask the Insiders board at BuckeyeScoop.com. But we will also, if you're subscribed, you get a notification as soon as we go live. So then you get to enjoy the whole post-game show. Should be a lot to talk about. And of course, what's the best thing, Tony, about the post-game show for the end of the week, the penultimate week of the regular season?
It's Michigan week.
It is Michigan week. So the next time we see you guys, it will be Michigan week, the finest week of the entire year. Thank you guys all for joining us. It's always a lot of fun, and we will see you after the game.